What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Professionals Project. If you don't know by now, but you should. My name is Kenton Hipsher. I am the CEO and founder of the nonprofit, and our mission is to educate and inspire Black and Brown youths by exposing them to careers via Black and Brown professionals. And today we have with us an amazing Black professional, a young bow-tied gent in his prime, Dr. Norbert.
Not that amazing, just okay. But thank you.
Just okay, never okay. Any man who wears a bow tie is never okay, and I'll stick to that until the day I die. So you're going to have to accept this title today, Norbert.
All right, I accept.
So tell the people what your profession is and what industry you work in.
So I am a program manager for the Chan Zuckerberg initiative, which is a philanthropic organization that funds science, education, and justice reform. So philanthropy, that's the industry.
Dope. The best industry to be in. Am I right?
Sometimes. It feels good. It's easy to sleep at night.
Exactly. And that's the important thing, right? Peace of mind. Feeling good about what you do is key, guys. Lesson number 1 of today's episode. So let's get into it. Let's talk about, what it is to be you. What is a typical day in your life like?
So it's a lot of relationship building and relationship management to get the outcomes, the deliverables for the jargon of whatever program I'm managing, right? So a program is a collection of projects. So each project has somebody managing it or doing it to give us some outcome. So it's a lot of phone calls to scientists, or mainly who I work with, and professors, researchers at institutions and mostly universities. So checking up with them via email, phone call. So what progress are you making? What are the bottlenecks? What's holding up progress? What kind of opportunities have you noticed in the field? And then taking in that information and putting together strategies about how we can overcome these bottlenecks to get to that end goal of the program or the project. And then talking with my team about the strategy, working with them, figuring out who we need to contact and partner with, and then going from there. And then at the end of the day, or 2-3 years from now, whenever the project ends, hopefully we've got what we needed. And then we take some lessons from that for the next project.
Awesome. So can you give us an example of one of the projects that you've worked on, or at least the nature of the project?
Sure. The program that I manage is in single-cell biology. So single-cell biology is this. It's a field and it's a technology, or a suite of technologies that you would take, say, human tissue and disassociate it into each individual single cell. So your body's made up of trillions of cells. You run it through a machine that can sort it into those individual cells, and then you're going to look at the transcript. So DNA makes RNA, and each cell has a particular profile of RNA, which tells you what type of cell it is. And looking at that, you can tell an immune cell from a heart cell, from a kidney cell. And then if you look at just the kidney, you can tell the different parts of the kidney doing that. And so the thing that we're doing now is doing a whole bunch of research, or supporting research, to try to support a program called the Human Cell Atlas. And so the idea there is to build an entire atlas, basically Google Maps, for the human body, where we know every single cell type in the human body, what it does, what its role is. And that will function as a reference, a healthy reference. These are just healthy tissue, so that we can compare it to diseased tissue to understand, okay, cancer of the liver always occurs in this cell type. So we target that cell type for treatment, rather than trying to target the entire liver and all cell types. So that's the basic idea of what we're working on.
Gotcha. Okay, so not only just mapping what the functions are of these cells, but then also their connections to diseases and medicine and how that can be broadly applied, correct?
Yeah. And so who's there, how many of them are there, who they're next to, who they're talking to, what their role is in the healthy body. And then also now we've started a program on inflammatory diseases, and comparing the two to see what goes wrong.
Got it. That's really cool. I'm super interested in that. I mean, obviously I have a science background, so I kind of geek out about this stuff, guys. So please excuse me, but it's very exciting to hear about new innovation and things going on, and especially something like this, which is very important. It has a lot of applications. So it's pretty cool that you're working on this now. You're not the guy squirting stuff into tubes and making all this happen. So in your role, can you kind of give us an overview of what you would be doing? You know, you said talking to scientists, but are you just asking them like progress updates, like, hey, how's it going? Or are you providing input as far as like scientific contribution? You know, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this?
It's a mix. So I used to be the guy that was squirting stuff into tubes and figuring things out. And it turns out I was just okay at that. And as much as I liked research, there were some days I didn't like research so much either. So I have to have a science background, right? So it's really hard to go in and start chatting with a scientist about their work and giving advice if they know you've never done this kind of work before. Right? And actually, to be honest, I've never done this specific type of work before. I've never done single cell biology. I've never even worked with human tissue. I'm a microbiologist, so always bacteria or yeast. But I spend a lot of time reading the literature, talking to people, figuring out what it is that they need, and I can ask the right questions, right? About so it's getting updates, which are fun, being on the cutting edge of science, learning what's going on, but also it's about asking what's not working, right? Scientists, people like to tell you about the really beautiful, awesome stuff that's working, right? And here's this lovely product that we're going to give you. But in the end, that's not helpful. So I want to know what's not working, why it's not working. And then if 10 people tell me the same problem, that's a big problem, right? That's something I need to figure out how to sort across all of those groups. Because if everyone's having the same problem, it's not just that lab or something like that. So I take that information and start to scope out what's the problem, talk to more people, more experts, because I'm not the expert in everything, right? And I need to be humble about that. So talk to them, more experts, figure out what's going wrong, where we can do something about it. And it might be something like, I need to do a data jamboree, right? And so there's a standard that needs to be put in place because lab X, Y, and Z are doing it their own way. And when we get the data, we can't actually integrate it. So if we develop a standard, then we can integrate it. And so, but if we develop a standard that nobody wants to use, it's no good. So we get all of the people involved that would use it and are interested in it, and they help to develop it. And then we release that standard out in the community and one problem solved. And so then we move on to the next problem. So just breaking off bite-sized problems to try and fix so that we can get to this end goal of this human cell atlas.
I gotcha. The scientific engineer, essentially, solving all of the problems, one small step at a time.
So my amazing skill set is that I can talk to people and listen. That's the that's the big skill set.
Now, I'm not gonna, underestimate that skill, because as a science person, there are not a lot of science people who can do that job. So don't just let that one go over your head, guys. Trust me, there are a lot of people who just want to be at the bench, locked in, squirting stuff into tubes, doing what they got to do to get it done. But not a lot of people who can communicate and really try to dive deep into the thinking of this stuff and be able to share that with another human being. That's just different people. Everybody's different. They have their own personality types. So that skill is actually very valuable, not just in this career. If you were to go to another career or another career or another career, that skill will be valuable wherever you go.
True. Absolutely.
So see, Told you, you're awesome. Don't tell yourself any differently. But that's really, really interesting. I was just thinking, I mean, I have so many questions, of course, because like all the sciencey stuff is running through my mind, but I'm trying to push that to the back and focus on the career here. But just to clarify, are these labs that come out of the Chan Zuckerberg initiative, or is this labs that are run all across the world in different areas like academia, industry, so on and so forth?
All across the world. So we don't have any labs at the Chan Zuckerberg initiative, though we do have a sister organization, the Chan Zuckerberg BioHub, where there are labs there and they do work, but we're separate. So we are a funder just like the Gates Foundation or the Sloan Foundation or the NIH, the biggest ones, right? Mm-hmm. And so we fund internationally. So a lot in the United States. Europe would be the second most that we fund, then Asia. And we just really started to expand into Latin America and Africa.
That's cool. That's cool. It's great that, you guys are doing more than just being a funding source. You're also playing a role in the process, and a critical part of that process, which is the thinking part. And that's the part that I think people often forget about when it comes to science, is it's 90% thinking. It's 10% actually doing the work. So, I mean, it's really critical that people understand that. And that was something that I think, even for me as someone who's been trained in science, that it was difficult for me to get around, because I'm very much a person of like, I just need to do the work and then the result will come at the end. But that's not how science works. And so it's very key that, you kind of realize that early on in your career and make the switch or pivot if you need to.
But sometimes you just got to do it, right? Sometimes you just got to do the experiment. And when it fails, if it fails, learn from it and do it again.
That's true. That is very true. But let's circle back here to the greatness that is you, Dr. Norbert. So tell everybody, what your ethnicity is and where your hometown is.
So I am Jamaican born. So grew up there the first 10 formative years of my life. But I'm African American. I live in the United States. I've been here ever since. I'm a citizen. So hometown, birthplace would be Kingston. Hometown, I guess, would be Orlando, Florida, where I grew up, spent 20-something years there. But now I live in Redwood City. I moved around quite a bit. I think Madison, Wisconsin is the place that I feel most at home in. But Redwood City's growing on me.
Okay. I figured, some of the perks of the Bay Area would grow on you there. Nice weather, all the landscape, the food. But, Madison has its perks too. Good beer if you're into that. Good dairy products, good burgers. I mean, it's, it could be close depending on the person, but for me, I'm definitely gonna have to take the Bay Area here because that's where I live now.
I mean, the beach is right over the mountains, but half an hour away from where I live. But I gotta wear a sweater when I'm on the beach, and I can't go into the water, and it's foggy, so I don't know.
That's true, but no snow. Oh man, yeah, but I digress because I could go on about this as a Midwesterner for a very long time. But that's great that you found this path to get to, essentially philanthropy and science being married into one area and finding a career in that, which is wonderful. But I'm sure growing up, like, you probably weren't thinking like, oh, I'm going to work for the Chan Zuckerberg initiative one day, because it probably didn't exist, one. And two, these organizations probably weren't very popular on the teenage radar. So can you describe sort of your educational track to get from where you started to where you are now?
Yeah. So, I mean, depends on how far back you're talking about. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Batman, right? But that didn't seem like it was going to work out as I grew up and got older. So, I always enjoyed school. I was good at it. Came easy to me. I was lucky that, my mom, when we moved to the US, she just made sure to live in neighborhoods where we would have really good schools to go to. And so I got lucky from that standpoint. And thankfully my mom just was thinking ahead and understood how to navigate this system, right? I just love science. I spent a lot of time outdoors, a lot of time with my junior microscope and what have you. But when I got to college, there was just a lot of interesting things. So I spent so much time in school just going across things, changing majors, not having majors, just a lot of history, philosophy, psychology. And I was determined, so I wanted to be a science major, but someone said, if you're going to do science, chemistry at the time, then you're going to have to get a PhD if you're going to do anything with that. And it's like, nope, I don't want to spend that much time in school. So then I just cycled through different majors, as pharmacy at one point, nursing at some point, and then computer science, which turns out I hate coding. So, and then one day I was like, I don't care if I make money or not, I'll just do science. So if I hadn't spent all that time trying not to spend all this time in school, I maybe wouldn't have spent all this time in school. So I started out at community college, took all the math and science courses I could there because A, it was cheaper, it was smaller, moved on to a 4-year college, and then went to graduate school. And the community college to PhD route is unusual, but it can be done, testament of it. I've got a buddy who's a psychology professor at University of Georgia, also went to community college to graduate school route.
Long route.
Yeah, and just following my passion and my interest. And it was then I was going to be a professor. That was why I was going to college. That's the only thing you really knew about in a PhD program is you're either going to be a professor or you're going to go to industry, because everyone there is a professor and that's all they know. And at some point I discovered, I don't think I like academia and I need to try something else. And so I took a chance and I applied to the AAAS Science Policy Fellowship, which is a program that takes scientists and puts them into government to either advise congresspeople, the legislature, on scientific matters that they deal with every day, or puts you in agencies like the NIH, FDA, USDA, NSF, etc. And I got it. So I didn't think I was qualified, but that's lesson number one. It doesn't matter. Let the other person decide if you're qualified for the job. You don't make that decision. Apply and see what happens. And it also helps you get over that imposter complex. So I spent 2 years in this fellowship at the National Cancer Institute at the National Institutes of Health, which gave me the training and background and framework to be a program manager, because that was my role while I was there as a fellow, which then made it easy to transition into this role, because I met somebody at a conference and started a conversation and I'm telling people about what I was interested in, what I was doing, getting interested in what they're doing and helping them figure out how to do it. And it comes back to you eventually. And so I got recruited to do that same job, but now instead of spending the government's money, I spend a billionaire's money instead.
The classic Robin Hood story. Take from the rich and give to the poor. Look at that. A real gentleman at heart with a bow tie. Guys, there is nothing better than this. Don't you ever tell me that you're not great, Norbert, okay? Don't tell me that. What are some of the challenges that you face in the role that you're in now? Because, I'm sure there's a lot of difficulty not only dealing with these large, grandiose problems, but also trying to, talk to scientists and people who may not necessarily like communicating, or, talking to various people around the world and stuff.
I would say people can be one of the complications, right? So there's sometimes a misalignment in desires and in what we want. So, as a researcher, as a principal investigator at a university, your main output that you're judged on is papers, right? Articles. And so that's what you care about. I don't care about papers. Papers are nice, but what we want are data. We want open science. We want you to publish protocols so that other people can do it and repeat it. The data can be reused. And we want you to give those data to us so that we can build that human cell atlas. I don't ever have to ask you to publish a paper because I know you're going to publish that paper. And so those two things can be misaligned because releasing the data is not advantageous necessarily to a researcher. They want to hold on to it as long as possible so they can get as much out of it. But we want to release it as soon as possible because more people, more minds looking at that data, using those data will lead to faster results and accelerate the science. So that kind of misalignment can happen, right? Which is, I want X, you want Y. How can we both get to where we need to be to get there? Mm-hmm. And convincing you, the researcher, that the best thing for you to do is be as open as possible with your science and your research and your data, etc. But for the most part, I think our grantees, they understand that, and they're smart people, and they've been selected partially because they already are practitioners of open science, and that's catching on more broadly. And I think now in the time of COVID, we've seen just how important it is to be as open as possible and release data and information as soon as possible. So that's one plus. I would say not having enough knowledge base is another challenge that I've had to face because I'm not a single cell biologist, but I wasn't a cancer biologist either, and I did okay at the National Cancer Institute. It turns out genetics and genomics are the same whether you're looking at bacteria, cancer cells, or people. And so the baseline is there, but some of the problems we're trying to solve are deep technical problems or computational biology problems, and I have no computational background. So having those conversations can sometimes be difficult and uncomfortable, and I worry about losing credibility by not being able to speak the lingo of a computational biologist. But I think we get past that by showing some humility, which is, look, this is not my background, you're the expert. And I think the moment you tell somebody they're the expert, they relax and they're ready to respond. Teach me, and we can see where we need to go. Tell me what your problems are, and I'll see if I can help you solve them.
Yeah, I was thinking similarly along those lines. Like, keeping up with all that information is just tough. That's tough for any person who's involved in science or any sort of reporting, is trying to juggle all of that information in your head. And then trying to communicate that to, experts in the field is always a challenging thing. But I feel like you get trained very well on how to do that in grad school, because that's why you're there. You're there to learn how to communicate amongst a field of experts, how to contribute, physically to that field as well. So, you get the training, you get the background, but when you're out there in the field really doing it in the day-to-day, it's much different. Much different. So I completely understand. And like you said, working with people is a big challenge. Now working in life science sales, I work with people all the time, and it's not easy because one person may be having a great day, the other person maybe not so having a great day, and you have to learn to juggle those emotions and still make progress through, these people, because you ultimately rely on them, and they rely on you in some aspect. And I think that's what really makes the initiative work for you guys is, there's a mutual benefit here, right? Like, in return for getting funding and also getting the name and support of Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, you also give us this progress in terms of scientific research, and you're open about your findings. And generally speaking, and I will, stand on my soapbox about this, I think science should be open and free for everyone. I don't think you should have to pay for anything, but people have to make money initially to live. So I understand that in that sense.
I mean, you've already paid for it, right? Because most of the funding comes from the NIH or the NSF. So you as the taxpayer have already paid for it.
There it is, folks, right there. Every time you get that 7% off of whatever your bill is, it's going to science, baby. It's going to science. Well, maybe
some of it.
1% of that's going to science, but maybe 1%, maybe less than that. But you know what? A percentage is going to science. But, that's, even though you have to deal with all these struggles, you have a lot of things that are great about your role and sound very exciting to me. But ultimately to you, what is it that gets you up out of bed every morning and wakes you up and it's like, man, it's a pandemic, but you know what? I'm going to get after it because I love what I do.
You're making an assumption. I love what I do. It's a correct assumption. I actually am quite happy in this role and with this organization, with these people. So one is just the simple fact that I get up and go to work. Well, I used to go to work in a building with a lot of smart, motivated people who are just really hardworking and interested in what we're doing. And that's the nice thing about being in a philanthropy, right? You've selected for a whole group of people who are just good at heart and wanting to make a difference in the world. And the mission. So the mission is is a future for everyone is our tagline. And in science, it's or in the science division of CZI, it is to manage, cure, or prevent all diseases by the end of the century. So in the next 80 years, which seems like a big goal, but if you think about where we were 80 years ago in science and where we are now, it's not that hard to believe that we can make that jump in the future. Also, I'll be dead in 80 years, so I'm not responsible for any of that. So that's really exciting to have this mission to drive you and to interact with all these people who are trying to do the same thing. It just feels good. And all these smart people are at the cutting edge of technology and the cutting edge of new information and discovery. It's really exciting.
Hey, you made an assumption that you would be dead in 80 years. You may not be dead in 80 years because Elon Musk may get this Neuralink thing going. And then the next iteration of Neuralink could be, just replanting your conscience in some system. So you may not be dead, man. You may be still rolling, still kicking.
I mean, there's a whole group of people out there who just look at aging as a type of disease that they're going to cure. So there's the Methuselah Foundation. There's even Calico, which is run by Google, that is looking into aging and anti-aging. So it could happen.
All I'm saying is 80 years, nothing. I'm sure in 40 years, you'll be living like you're 20 again. Don't worry about it.
Maybe. I don't know how exciting that is. I think I'm okay with dying.
Well, we're getting close to the end already. I know it's gone by pretty quickly. It usually does. But I just wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for the young Norberts out there who want to pursue a career similar to yours or follow in your footsteps even?
So, I mean, that's hard to say, right? I fell into this position kind of serendipitously. So, I mean, that's one thing, right? Be open to finding new things. So, though you may think you're dead set on being X and you wanted to be X since you're 4 years old, maybe you should rethink some of those goals, right? Like, I wanted to be Batman when I was 4 years old. That's maybe, things change, grow up, and think about it differently.
You still could be.
Yeah, I still could be. So be open to new experiences, trying new things, say yes to everything. And tell people about what you're interested in. Find out what other people are interested in and help them get there, and they will help you. Telling people your problems, sometimes they will help you solve those problems. There's a limit to that, right? Depending on what those problems are, is not a bad idea. So I'd say that's in general. For program management, having a little project management experience and organizational skills, etc., is useful to have. But I don't have a formal project management certificate, which is a thing in the world, because I just picked up the little pieces I needed from different jobs and different positions over time. And then much of that training you get just by getting a PhD, right? It's a part of the way that works. So I'd say the openness and and just thinking or being open to things and trying new things is probably the helpful and smart, and not just following your dreams, because sometimes your dreams can't pay the bill. Sometimes when you reach that dream, you'll find that it's actually a nightmare. So, take that with a grain of salt. Explore. That may be your dream just because you don't know about other things that exist out there that may be a better dream to have.
That's fair. Hey, Batman wanted to be Batman until Bane broke his back. Then I'm sure he didn't want to be Batman at that point. So there it is, folks. There's the gems, the nuggets of gold, the pearls dropped by Norbert himself on you. So with that, do you have any shout outs that you want to give to anybody, or any closing thoughts to leave with the youths?
No, nothing came. Just, keep pushing, keep trying new things. Life is not actually that short. Life is long. You've got time. So don't worry about it. Keep trying new things. You'll be all right. It'll be all right.
Boom. I should put that in a banner. You've got time. It's right above you. Well, thank you so much, Norbert. It's been really great talking to you. I appreciate you, sharing your story, being open, being vulnerable with us, and really giving us a deeper look into what actually goes on in this big organization called the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Because to the outside looking in, we may think 1,001 things are going on there, but it's nice to hear, what actually is happening, at least on a small level there. So I'm very thankful. And with that, I'm gonna look to the camera as I always do and remind y'all out there to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, because I'm doing this for free, y'all. This is all for free. I don't get paid. We don't take donations. None of that. All right. I'm getting partnerships. I got episodes all for y'all. I do it all for you guys. If you wanna hear anything, you wanna know a career out there, you're interested, you wanna see a Black or brown professional that does a career that you're interested in, let me know. Look in the comments. Drop us a note, please. I will go find them and I will record an episode with them so that you can see the representation that you need, and you will become aware of some of the things that are out there that you may have not known about. So do yourself a favor, drop us a comment down below, and also make sure you check out the description, because I've put some links in there for y'all people. Lots of good links. There's links to career placement tests. There's links to personality tests, so you can figure out who I am, what may fit my personality. Who knows? I didn't know. If I had those tests, maybe I would have had a better idea. But you know what? You're going to figure it out one way or another. But also, there's paid internships there. There's research opportunities that are also paid there. So if you want to try any of this out, make sure you check out the description and go apply, guys. Like Norbert said, just apply. Don't worry about if you're qualified. They will tell you. They will tell you. And if they say you're not qualified, forget it. Apply again, because you might get in. You never know. So with that, it has been another amazing episode of the #Black Professionals Project. And we want to thank Dr. Norbert again, who is also very, very, very great and has a ridiculously cool bow tie, and will always have a ridiculously cool bow tie. And we will see you guys every Monday, as we always do. Check you guys out later. Peace.